The moment we have all been waiting for, the collapse of banking has started. In fact, people are seeing accounts, their bank accounts heading down to zero, and this comes just a few short days after Ripple's banking license is issued. Not only that, but SWIFT is suddenly talking about incorporations of ISO tokens, which among them and leading them is XRP. And then we have a video of previous CTO of Ripple, David Schwartz, talking about the onboarding, institutions onboarding their customers right onto the XRP ledger and not just showing or using the XRP ledger infrastructure within the institution. This is a big difference. The reason behind that is basically Ripple's becoming the central entity. So customers will go right on the XRP ledger so that they see the infrastructure at work. We're also going to talk about January 21st, when a lot of things will change on the XRP ledger in the United States. In fact, January 21st, the XRP ledger will be issuing to American customers in XRP ledger token called MEXC token, and they will be able to off-ramp it right on a US approved centralized exchange. That's only a few days away, less than 7 days away, about 6 days away. We're gonna talk about all of that and more in today's video, so you have to stay tuned. Let's start with this video here of people basically losing all their money in their bank account for a couple of seconds.
Breaking news, thousands of Bank of America customers got a surprise when they couldn't see their account balances online.
This morning and into the afternoon, as many logged onto their app, that balance came out as zero. Again, this was online, not at the local Bank of America branches. Now, this all started this morning, according to reports, and it spiked around 12:45 p.m., according to Down Detector, which collects data on outages. Now, during that time, customers logging onto their Bank America app had issues. Some were experiencing that balance of zero.
And this is not shocking because Ripple had stated it very directly on CNBC. In fact, they mentioned that Ripple says US banks will want to use XRP cryptocurrency after partial victory in the SEC. Now that victory is now complete, so banks are going to be using or want to use XRP. The reason that is happening is because the shift away from the US dollar has begun. In fact, if you hear this clip of David Schwartz, he talks about institutions no longer just using XRP ledger in the background, just as a tool. In fact, they are sending their customers to use and transact on the XRP ledger directly, so that even the bank itself no longer becomes a middleman. Listen in.
No money in their bank account.
That's great. That's not a bad thing. But that's not going to bring their customers onto the XRP ledger. If they use the XRP ledger to launch tokenized loans, that's going to bring the people who are going to fund those loans and who want to return onto the ledger. That's the difference in the sort of institutional DeFi type of adoption and the traditional institutional adoption we've seen. We really see that with stablecoins, right? A stablecoin is probably one of the most regulated products in the crypto space. If you look at companies like Circle, Tether, the forthcoming Ripple stablecoin, these are going to be heavily regulated products, right? Most of us will never be able to get a stablecoin directly from its issuer or redeem a stablecoin with its issuer. But there are millions of people who can hold USDT, hold USDC, hold the forthcoming Ripple stablecoin, who knows what jurisdiction, though. They'll be in real DeFi ecosystems. That's the difference. Enterprise.
And this is scaring the hell out of SWIFT, because essentially SWIFT's entire business model relies on banks using them to transact. Essentially, the bank has to call on SWIFT to send that message through. There obviously has to be liquidity on the other side. But if the banks don't exist or their customers are dealing directly on the XRP ledger, what is the need of SWIFT's messaging? And this is why SWIFT is changing its own narrative, saying we are going to be utilizing the system that XRP ledger has built, the ISO system. And this is a clip from a conference where the SWIFT representative talks exactly about that.
There is a question from Sharifa, who is coming from SWIFT indeed, and will be making the second presentation. And of course, SWIFT is quite a player, right, in the ISO messaging. So Sharifa. Thank you, Anna. So first of all, I would like to thank you for the work that you've been doing. From a SWIFT perspective, this is extremely important to us to hear it from the industry.
It's not really our purpose nor our role to dictate things. So very welcome this perspective. What I'd like to say is, and I'm turning to the audience right now, we do have a very large community at SWIFT, 11,000 players, 6,000 of them active in the security space. We'd like to hear from the rest of the world as well. So please get engaged. Please share your own perspective on this ISO 15022 coexistence. The second point I wanted to mention, and it's linked to the...
This is the important point.
Digital assets, tokenized assets, and DLT. It's a bit like in the standards world, right? Traditional and digital ecosystems are going to coexist. And in order for us to achieve the goal that Andrea was mentioning in terms of achieving efficiency, making things work, and services adopted, we will go through a coexistence in the digital space as well. And what we've been doing as part of the standard maintenance releases, I believe we started somewhere in 2019, 2020, is to update the MT and the MEXC messages to carry digital information. That is also extremely important until we find what is the future way of communicating in a digital asset space, be it APIs, as you said, Jean-Paul.
They have updated their system. And again, they're not going to say it clearly, update system to be able to be transacting digital currency. Truthfully, there is a reason for SWIFT to be worried, because right now on the XRP ledger, people are getting paid on chain. No longer is it running through a bank to begin with. In fact, one of the largest industries currently in existence is the mainstream media industry, an industry worth alone $2.5 trillion. Now, if you look at the largest investment firms, BlackRock, among others, they're invested in two industries: the banking industry and banking infrastructure industry, and they're invested in the second largest industry pretty much in the world, which is the media industry. The XRP ledger now, through an XRP ledger token called the BXE token, pays journalists right on the XRP ledger in this BXE token. No longer do they have to go through the US dollar. The journalists publish and it decentralized gets them paid. Now, this has not yet come to the States. In fact, it is coming to the States January 21st, which is less than a week away from today's current day. I think it's like 6 days from now. When this happens, and by the way, BXE token is currently already on the XRP ledger, sitting at 7 cents. And when I began talking about BXE token, initially, I think the first time I talked about it, it was 1 cent. Just 2 days ago, it was like 3 cents. And today it is 7 cents. Actually, 7.5 cents today, up 25%. But what will happen essentially is come January 21st, the journalists will be able to off-ramp. They will be able to get this BXE token that they hold and off-ramp it on a US regulated exchange into fiat, which means the whole purpose of banks for payments is gone for one of the largest industries in the United States, the mainstream media industry. Now, what made me super excited about BXE token early on is because the total supply of this token that pays journalists is 500 million tokens. You have to think about that for a second. If every token was just $1, it went up from 7 cents to $1, that would make the total supply of this token, all the money that's available to pay journalists, $500 million. That's nothing. That's nothing. Think about that for a second. 500 million for an industry worth a whopping 2.5 trillion. And we're talking 500 million. Now, in order for them to be able to pay journalists, continue paying journalists, the token's price essentially is to be up. If the token is $2, that would only be $1 billion available for journalists. Now, obviously, the gains are huge if you're early. And right now, it's only on decentralized exchange, only on, I believe, decentralized XRP ledger. It's also on MEXC. I'm going to leave you some links in the post here that you should definitely look into. But the point is, guys, if it hits the same market cap as Solana at its peak, hit $300, and Solana has a total supply of 600 million, even higher than BXE token. And this is why I've been so bullish on this BXE token, but I'm very bullish on the XRP ledger because all of this is running through the XRP ledger, which, if you didn't know, with every single transaction on the XRP ledger, XRP gets burnt. That's how it works on the XRP ledger. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember that we're doing a giveaway for some free XRP as soon as we hit 40,000 followers, which we're inching closer to every single day. Today, we are about 850 followers away. So make sure you hit that follow button. Retweet this video, Finance Bro YT on X to follow us. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.